So like you always do that thing when you're like testing your recording where you do the ha 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 ha. And that does remind me of like one Rage Against the Machine line somewhere that's like mic check ha ha ha.
Yeah, it's Know Your Enemy.
Yeah, okay. Or is it no, it's mic check.
Oh, I thought there was like the beginning of Know Your Enemy when there's like the slap bass part or whatever. I don't know. Maybe it is. I don't know. All of Rage Against the Machine songs, for a band that I do like a decent amount, they all just kind of become one thing.
Yeah. Do you know what? For me, it's maybe because it's like the last real band I ever did like albums for, but like they blend together in my head, but the albums remain distinct. Like I can always be like, that's a self-titled album sound versus a Battle of Los Angeles sound.
Yeah, like I mean, I can tell the albums apart from the production quality getting different. You know, like they do get way sharper in their like Battle of Los Angeles sounds way different than like Evil Empire. Just from like not songwriting or anything like that. I think Rage Against the Machine has always actually been like probably like the one of the most like consistent bands of that era. But yeah, just like the production sounds way different. But no, I think it is the beginning of Know Your Enemy where it's like, huh, coming at you again with whatever,
like it's only you that does that, because whenever I see anyone else do that kind of like ha 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 ha, I always immediately think Rage Against the Machine because of my childhood or whatever. But at the same time, I know that they're probably actually going for more of a Will Smith.
I mean, I'm not. I literally. Okay. So for the listener, I guess if this ends up in the episode, I always check my mic by going microphone check ha 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 ha, and I think it's just like a generic like '90s battle rap thing.
Yeah,
it's just funny. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
and that's where these two things intersect. Is Rage Against the Machine and Will Smith's music career are both incredibly '90s.
Yeah, but like I like one and I really don't like the other. I mean, okay, I take that back. There's like a handful of good Will Smith songs.
I just wish that I really think we entered like the worst timeline the moment Will Smith stopped doing songs for all of his movies.
I agree.
I think even when he got into like the more serious stuff, like he's clearly going for the Oscar, like with Pursuit of Happiness, the credits should be like a Will Smith song called Pursuit or something.
Yeah, or like I Am Legend.
Yeah. Oh, I can imagine the back of it. There'd be like so much like trumpet backing. DJ Jazzy Jeff would still be just like DJ Jazzy Jeff's like starts like sampling some weird Prussian orchestras to get like battle marches for
I would appreciate it. Yeah. No, that I think that you're right. I think first off, Will Smith is just I find him so weird. That's the thing that then like he's like he's like low key, quietly and very active member of like Scientology and shit.
Yeah.
And just like he just has so much sketchy shit around him.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But hey, free like TikTok content for anyone out there who can do a decent like Will Smith rap impression is just do a song for every movie he's done since
all the serious
Wild
movies.
Wild West. Was that the last one he did music for?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
those 2 decades.
Those songs were always like so fun too. You know,
they were fun. They were always fun. Fun is definitely the word.
Yeah,
yes.
They're not great. I mean, they're entertaining.
But it always remind like every time you do the ha 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 ha,
it
like
Smith.
It goes Rage Against the Machine, and then I immediately think afterwards of what I think has probably been the most insightful parody this TV show has ever done, which is Family Guy taking the piss of a Will Smith song. And then I kiss a girl if she lets me. Always take off my shoes when I enter.
Yeah, exactly. One out of every like 50 Family Guy things that's like actually funny.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes I just keep thinking that I'm going to show up and work on Monday and be like, Kieran, what do you do this weekend? I was like, I don't know, I just watched the newest episode of Family Guy. Just wanted to see what's up.
Is that show still on?
I'm sure it. Hang on. Yes, it must
It's
be.
just amazing to me how Family Guy is such a trash show and American Dad is like very solid, actually. Like it is very strange to me how then two shows that are from literally the exact same guy can be so like one sucks and the other one's like actually fun. Because like even like Futurama, or as the Italians call it, Futurama, it's still like, you know, I mean, like I won't say that it's like better than The Simpsons or whatever, but like it is a good show. Like, you know, like or even even the one that he does on Netflix is like entertaining. I don't like it, but you know, the one about like the princess or whatever, like Matt whatever.
Oh yeah, Matt Groening's one, the Disenchanted. Or
yeah, exactly. Like it's like entertaining. Yeah, like
do you want something? Do you want to know something funny? Okay, so first of all, yes, Family Guy is still going. Season 23 was
wild
2024, and then it's having its like New Year break that seasons do in America, but it's going to come back at the end of this month.
Thank goodness.
Thank God, absolutely. Then the nation of the United States will heal after February 25th when the second part of season 23 of Family Guy premieres.
This is the problem in the U.S. is that the little piggies haven't gotten their you know second part of the season of Family Guy back yet. That's why things are so crazy.
But in a similar vibe, if you want, do you know what else is still going? Futurama.
Yeah. Oh, like it's like been off and on the air like 3 or 4 times. Yeah.
But there is like, Futurama season 9 is 2024 and is again similarly on like a you know, it's New Year break. It's a Hulu original.
Oh yeah, okay.
Which I think over here on the side of the Atlantic we could watch it on Disney Plus. That makes
sense. I use my sister's Hulu account, so.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, I've been watching The Kardashians.
Ooh, yeah. That is also like that was.
I wish I was
my wife.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I was watching what's the vampire show? The What We Do in the Shadows. I was watching that, and then I finished it, and then I was like, and then it just in big thing on the front, The Kardashians, and I was like, well,
yeah. So this is something. My sister moved to the States pretty recently, and she was complaining that like, actually, you know, like Disney Plus on the other side of the Atlantic is better because it's everything on Hulu and everything on Disney Plus in one place.
Yeah.
Whereas in the United States, those things are kept separate and whatever. But then my wife was just like sick one day and she just turns on Disney Plus and the first giant banner is just like, why not watch like season 20 something of Keeping Up with the Kardashians? And she just literally goes, tempting.
Yeah.
She's never watched it before in her life.
It like, you know what? Because I watched a good portion of Keeping Up with the Kardashians simply as culture. I have to, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
Keeping my finger on the pulse. No, I mean it's just it's
the most
it's
roundabout way to find out what is Kanye.
Exactly. And I mean it's the same reason why I watch like all the Real Housewives shows. Like you know, like
you're a man of culture.
I mean, like, yeah, I want the dumbest shit. Like I really do.
Yeah. Ich bin gekulturt, or whatever that would be.
Sure, yeah. Speaking of culture. Europe.
Hey. Welcome to your weekly main episode of Quarter Späti. Got confused there. We're recording this right before it comes out so we can give you the latest news and not due to a scheduling error. Don't get it twisted. We never make mistakes.
Never, ever.
Never happens. Not once.
No, we knew that big shit was happening this weekend, so we were like, let's hold out. I have a
big
feeling.
Shit like the second half of Family Guy season 23 is coming back.
That's next week. Tune in.
How is Jeremy preparing for this seismic American shift? Yeah. So, man, speaking of culture, speaking of seismic events, we got to talk about the greatest geopolitical event to ever occur in our little corner of the world since 1991, collapse of the Soviet Union. Finally, the Baltic countries, after 30 or so years, are independent. In the most fucking absurd way imaginable. I don't know how. Okay, if people haven't seen this, I think the best, scroll down on My Blue Sky. I think that's, or Nick's Blue Sky. I think we've talked about this. It's the only way you can probably find it, because I don't know what I know what keyword to give you. Baltic Energy Independence Day, where Ursula von der Leyen and a collection of her largest commissioners basically went up and touched some strobe lights while the opening sound of a 2014 Skrillex EP just started playing.
Yeah, the new national anthem of Europe, Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites.
Yeah, it is absurd. It was one of those moments, like, Europe, we don't do spectacle. I think a lot of like European, especially Brussels politics, is like the banality of evil kind of shit. That's usually that's our territory, and spectacle is for like Washington. I really do hope we do more spectacle, because I love this. I showed this to like, this was the first time in European politics I could show to like, normal offline people.
Yeah, and they'd get it. Yeah, and they'd be like, wow, this is. And the thing is, I mean, I don't know if we've mentioned this on the show before, or if it's just, us in, private chats. I think that the only role of the European Union should be organizing some method that every European gets Ableton, so that they can make Eurodance.
Universal Basic Ableton.
Yeah, yes. Universal Basic Ableton.
This is a Berlin-based podcast.
Yeah. The German economy is going to do phenomenal after this.
Absolutely.
It'll be like Ozembic. The entire economy will be lifted from simply one industry, heavily subsidized Ableton industry. And, but like, I think that we really have to focus our energies towards as well, making sure that Romania gets like the most amount of these DAWs.
Absolutely. I think and then we can use this in the, the trade war. We can cut off the Americans from making funky beats.
Yeah.
And retaliatory tariff. Absolutely.
And I also then, in this reform, the new national anthem of Europe is, you guessed it right, yes, Stereo Love. For those who don't remember that song, we can't do what's it called anymore because it got co-opted by the Nazis.
Yeah. Le Morticieux or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, we can't use that one. And I was reminded of the song Stereo Love the other day, and I was convinced that this is Europe. That because it's one of those songs that, like, during its period of popularity in Europe also was popular in the United States. Not like Dragostea, whatever the fuck that song's called, which was popular significantly after. This was like, this charted in the US properly. So.
Yeah, Dragostea Dinte, Presa Presta, Nome, trying to learn the words.
Yeah, so you can sing it at Eurovision this year.
So I can sing it, yeah, absolutely. A tribute to Moldova now participating this year. Yeah, it's God bless. God bless Berlin is over memes page, because it's like the only meme that really just like, yes, this is what I'm feeling right now. It's like, there are 3 wolves inside you. Fuck those Nazis for stealing DG D'Agostino and saying Auslanders rouse. The second wolf is like, as an Auslander, maybe I should rouse. Things are getting bad. And then the third wolf is just like, God damn, this is a catchy song. And it's a problem, like, because you do start, like, there were several times where I was singing the lyrics, like their lyrics.
Oh yeah. The thing that then I just think is so funny about that, like, that moment of German culture is that then, in the truest sense of German culture, they didn't even have a song good enough to like make that one.
We need an Italian.
Yeah, we need an Italian to do the racism for us, because it's just that, it's that continuous thing of just like, German neo-Nazism is void of anything that then's actually German, and it's just like, you know, Schlager and like
but you
being
could
a
argue it's also
filthy
a rich, terrifying far right tradition of taking something the Italians started and making it much worse.
of course, yeah. Like again, that's also what I meant in that joke of
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Anyway, shout out to whatever commissioner's son or inappropriately young mistress is an event manager. God bless. I hope to see more of your work, especially since there's now plans to do a similar thing with Moldova and get them connected to the Romanian energy grid. I want to similarly. That's a great time to bring back Stereo Love.
Perfect time, yeah. And then when they're on the grid, then you can introduce the universal Abletons for every Romanian and Moldovan and Transnistrian. Can you imagine the music?
Also probably Bulgarians as well. We need to
sure, whatever. Yeah, I don't care. Everyone gets an Ableton, and everyone will be making bangers, and Europe will be able to power its economy and its electrical grid on Eurodance.
Bernard Arnault commits suicide on live television because now the richest man in Europe is whoever owns Toman.de.
Yeah, the Toman family.
Yeah, the Toman family. Yeah. So that's what they were doing in the 30s. They're not one of the bad ones, are they?
No, Toman started in like the 80s or something like that.
Yeah, they're grand.
Yeah, they're like way down in like Bavaria and like no, in traditional like European or German tradition, it's just like the entire town works for Toman.
Oh, absolutely. The Germans love a company town. Anyway.
Yeah, feudalism is still around, baby.
Still around. We didn't like the Germans had to have capitalism explained to them. Like when I tap on your foot and look you directly in the eye and say, "Hello, Mr. Thompson," you smile and nod. And it's just we just replaced the castle with whatever shitbag fond lord was ruling over us with the Volkswagen factory, and it's basically the same. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, I can't wait for energy. Well, I mean, yeah, sure, whatever. We'll figure out how to make this also power Europe, but European energy independence through Eurodance bangers.
Yeah.
Don't ask how it's going to happen. It just will. The movement of everyone dancing will.
Oh yeah, everyone has to dance on like some sort of kinetic hamster wheel that's actually powered.
Exactly.
To, like...
Well, what we're gonna do is that then we're just gonna set up all throughout Europe. Will be like kind of these like, Matrix Reloaded techno party things everywhere, and then through that it will generate. Yeah. It'll generate power.
It will be like that opening scene from Blade before things get bad and spooky. I do imagine the idea of just like RWE AG just like opening a bunch of clubs in like a new German industrial strategy.
Yeah. This is how they transition from coal to funky beats.
the newest hot club in somewhere like, oh, I don't know. I want to say in Munster. Just fuck it. It's just called Brown Coal. Like in English.
Yeah, sure. Whatever, that works. There's dumber club names.
Yeah. Anyway, that's a fabulous video. We strongly recommend you all go look at it and have fun. The next thing we kind of have to acknowledge that's happening this week, and it's got a fair amount of the press in a bit of a tizzy, even though realistically we know basically nothing about it, is Trump started negotiations, or it has just heavily said he's going to start negotiations with Vladimir Putin on peace in Ukraine. Points that I have heard so far, or like, okay, moves that we know this is kind of serious, is that like Lukashenko and Putin have released 3 American citizens between them from prison.
Yeah.
Listening to someone talk about it for the Financial Times, basically pointing out that like actually those kind of like prisoner negotiations usually involve like heads of state, like the Trump and Putin actually talking to each other in some capacity, whereas actually like ceasefire or like truce negotiations for like Ukraine actually involves a bunch of middlemen, which that seems wrong to me. That feels like it should be the other way around, personally. There's people in Europe kind of scrambling and a bit angry. Like, what I was kind of like heartened to see, because, you know, some Kieran thought got put into practice, which was like, as soon as this got like announced, Europe just picked up the terrifying I don't know, paprika phone, let's call it that, and literally just called in a favor with Orban, just being like, go over there and figure out what the fuck's going on.
I just find it so funny that then that like Europe has gotten themselves into this predicament multiple times, which is very funny to me. How where they just like they can't read the room. Like, it's one of these things where it's like, if Trump has been, now don't get me wrong, I understand that then Trump is a bit of like a, you know, he contradicts himself, this and that, but like one of the things that Trump has never contradicted himself on ever has been like, I would have never gotten the U.S. involved in the Ukraine war. The Ukraine war would have never started, and I'm going to negotiate a deal with Putin when elected. Like, he mentioned that stuff on multiple occasions, and then he gets elected, and then Europe is like, oh, what? This thing that he has been saying for 4 years is happening. And I think that that's something that, you know, kind of tying it to like the American viewpoint of this, I don't think Europeans understand how little the average American cares about Ukraine. And I don't mean that in like a mean way. I just mean that in like a realistic scenario. It's like a thing only like mega libs do, where they're like, oh, so like the general like population of the US either does not care at all, or they have the position then of like Trump of like the United States should not be involved. And it's not for like a good reason. Yeah. It is simply for the reason of that then we're wasting money. You know,
it's cost saving. Like there's been like pretty successful messaging in the United States that the reason eggs cost this much is because of Ukraine. And like that has worked.
There's also, I mean, it's also like the the real reason is the bird flu, but
let's don't worry about that.
Now there's like conspiracy idiots on Instagram saying the bird flu's fake, which is my new favorite. Like just
big egg are at it again. So I guess what we kind of do know about this whole thing is there's some like points of contention or whatever. What we know is very little, but what we do know is it's being taken kind of seriously, like I said, due to those prisoner releases. So you can't really just say like it's all bluff. The second thing we've gotten is from whatever corn oaf that like America has put in charge of like defense positioning or whatever has said like
the raging alcoholic guy.
Oh sure, yeah.
I forget his name.
He basically stated that Ukraine is not going back to pre-2014 borders, which people are also kind of like upset at. The other side of it as well are two other interesting points, which is Trump has been very clear that America will not be involved in like the peace negotiations. So therefore, Europe's kind of pissed that these negotiations are happening without them, because it kind of looks like Europe will kind of have to be like make up the vast majority of the peacekeeping force or whatever that goes in, or the bill for rebuilding Ukraine will fall on like France and Germany and stuff, which is interesting if true. The other more interesting thing from my perspective was like the Russian statement on it, where they were like, oh, we're open to like negotiating deeper economic ties with the United States. They also mentioned AI, which I find very funny, but like it immediately made me think of the fact that, I think we've talked about before with like Milo and stuff before, that there is like a segment of Russian conservatives who are so pissed at China as this new power that they're actually willing to go in with the Americans in the Cold War. And I was like, I wonder if Putin would making that angle. I go back and forth on it, but like,
and I think that in the sense too of like People speculate about this being much more of a thing in Europe, but I think that the Ukraine war has definitely soured this amongst the right. Like, there is, as we've talked about previously, like in the AFD, like while the AFD is like getting money from Russia to like do social media and shit like that mostly, and there are bank accounts that you can just like attach to them that then are just like funneling money internally in the AFD, they don't like, it's not like this like, oh, cut and dry, we love Russia, we want to be like Russia. There is like the Western AFD still very much hates Russia for like an old school Nazi reason, and the Eastern AFD likes Russia. Yeah. And the Eastern AFD likes Russia because they grew up with Russia being, or the Soviet Union being, some allies. So there's that. But in the United States, I mean, like, I know this sounds silly, but it's like, I think the easiest person to look at this is someone like a Tucker Carlson, who there is a general sense within U.S. conservatism of Russia being the, not like the best example of like a Christian nation. You know, they've banned all the like trans stuff, you know, like it's illegal to be woke and shit. And they've very much put this like God first sort of mentality to it. So I don't think like the idea then of Russia and the United States actually becoming closer during the Trump presidency is actually not far-fetched, but it's not for this reason that then like Trump is bought by Russia or whatever, like a lib would tell you. It is simply this, that the Trump movement sees a lot of ideological similarities between themselves and the like, you know, new Russian Orthodox movement that then Putin has very much like gravitated towards. Because Putin himself isn't really even like that fucking religious, you know? He just knows that he can like gain popularity that way.
Yeah, and then like, I think Russia will happily go along with an American policy that's just like, we're friends and we train, but don't you dare ever wag your finger at us and our like foreign policy objections of what we do within our borders.
Yeah.
Basically, like, if Russia could have the Saudi Arabia relationship, and also like what the relationship between the United States and Russia was when Putin first came to power, like the Georgian War period. Basically, they just want that again, of just everyone let us do what we want, or like America let us do what we want. Yeah. So like, grim times all around.
Yeah.
I will say that like the whole we like, what's interesting is like you get that in Bulgarian politics of like a lot of parties that are like, we like how Russia operates internally, but we still kind of talk about like being bullish towards Russia because we recognize them as like a foreign policy threat, but we still kind of like, hey, all that like gay propaganda, heavy air quotes laws, we love that shit. Let's do that.
Yeah, I mean, like, if I'm like, I know that there's still this like general fear amongst like Europeans of like, oh, like if we negotiate with Russia, Russia's then going to behave badly and expand more. I think that then that this also, because like there's been a lot, like the activity that's been happening in Ukraine. I mean, first off, it's winter, the ground is frozen, they can't, like, this is the thing that happens every year where they can't really move, they're dug in, and they just do like airstrikes or missile attacks at each other, you know, back and forth, or drone strikes or whatever. But I think that then that the reality of the situation is one, I mean, like if you look just like casualty numbers, like Russia alone has lost, like they had, I think it's like the estimation's like 700,000 casualties or something, which, you know, the terminology casualty being just like people removed from the battlefield, not only deaths. And Ukraine is like somewhere around like 200,000 to 300,000 as well. So like the losses are insane. Ukraine needs to like literally, like they both don't have the abilities to like refresh their you know, forces as easily.
No, we need those porn addicted North Koreans come along.
Yeah, like I mean, yeah, exactly. And the thing of it too is that then Ukraine then kind of also demanding with this like the peacekeeping forces and whatnot of a number that then is a bit like for them themselves unreachable, like 400,000 troops they need, which is, I don't know where they're going to come from, because most Ukrainians you know, like still like plenty of Ukrainians who are of military age don't want to go back because I mean, those numbers alone show the level of sheer brutality of the conflict. And I am like, the thing that then I thought was very interesting too in the light of it is the op-eds coming out then from clearly like defense contractors being like, well, our military can't do this peacekeeping operation. We need to invest more. There was one in I forget if it was like the Daily Mail or something like that.
We're getting a lot of like, I mean. So the interesting thing is, like, I do think this is like massively important to the future, because if let's say like Trump gets his way, and let's say we get what I would think is probably something like what I would expect out of these negotiations, which is Ukraine has to be neutral, it can join the EU. I'd probably guess that like they get back the Eastern territories, but Ukraine is forced to recognize Crimea as Russian or something. Would be like,
I don't think Russia's going to give the Eastern territories.
Yeah,
because they kind of like made that as the reason why they had to invade.
Yeah, all speculation, talking out of my ass here.
Yeah,
the thing is, like, if you go with the Trump stuff of just like, we're going to negotiate an end to this war one way or the other, and Europe has to take over. I really like I find that funny, because I do think that actually like forces that basically forces the Chinese century into existence.
Yeah,
because you force like the multipolar world, you force like the Gaullist thing to come out, because Zelensky already had a quote about like the European army coming true, and like this, it's in the water everywhere of like invest more in defense.
Yeah,
at the same time, NATO is looking kind of embarrassing. So like,
yeah, I mean, it's the sense of I think you're right. With then the French will come about as like the European military power. They already are. They just like are quietly such. And Macron has been the one who's been the most vocal of the European, like the idea of the European army, because you're right. There'll be the Gaullist fantasy, coming true.
We have a carrier Duke aircraft. Où est le aircraft carrier?
But and Germany too is, no matter which way you look at it, every single party is wanting to go above and beyond with their the 2% threshold is no longer the 2% threshold, especially for Germany. And I mean, I think that that's like a perfect transition to our next topic then. Speaking of, people who want to
more money going into this big old pot. Now, I'm really happy that everyone's got their shit together who's managing this pot. Nothing ever goes missing. It's all fine.
Oh, yeah.
Did something come across your desk?
No, of course not. I was thinking of something else that we could talk about first, because you love this party. You love Volt.
Okay, go
on. If you don't mind, we can then switch this around a little bit with our plan. But I really like. I mean, I feel that a lot of people actually saw this in Germany, because as you've mentioned, the only the only good journalist left in Germany is now Thilo Jung, which is unfortunate.
Not like me condoning Thilo Jung necessarily, more of a slight against Germany.
Yeah, exactly. And so he's had on every like major he's going to have on every major candidate, but the two major interviews that have gotten a lot of attention were, of course, Olaf Scholz, and we'll talk about him in a little bit. But has been Maral, I don't know what her Maral. I just see her name and I don't know her last name, but I don't care, because I will simply refer to her as a mononym, because that is how she is portrayed on
her last name is Volt.
Yeah, Maral Volt. And giving probably one of the worst interviews I've ever seen in my life.
It's a train wreck. Absolutely embarrassing. There's so much.
How do you have no media training and you're like the McKinsey party?
Yeah, it's all right. So Kieran has his limited like German, and I apologize. I wish I had better German or whatever. I was watching this at like 0.75 speed with my flashcards out, being like trying to keep up with everything. But even if you don't have decent German, you just like the pauses are uncomfortable, just like the deer in headlights aspect of all of this. And it did make me go through like her social media a bit more, because I was interested. There's so many people like I have to now look up on TikTok, in which in a way I haven't done before. Like that big Greenlandic TikTok celebrity, I still haven't investigated her too much. Anyway, with Maral, there was like so many pauses, so many like it's I had to check out their Discord to see how all the people were rationalizing this. I had fun going through the comments. Comments were confirming a lot of like suspicions I had, which is as someone who's been on the Volt beat for
like
5
years, yeah.
5 years. One of the things that makes them like less fun for me to like interact with now is that all the people that I, became friends with by arguing with them on Twitter, they are gone. And that was confirmed in the comments that there's like a huge amount of turnover within this party. And everyone is just kind of like, yeah, I was at Volt for a bit, but then like it became clear they were just they thought that likes equaled votes, and like, and in a certain sense, like, yes, it's the McKinsey company. How are you not better at like messaging and PR spin and blah blah blah? But at the same time, it's also like I can totally see the Volt logic of just go on Tilo Young, it will work out because it's Tilo Young. Also, we're pointing out that I think this is the only time they've ever been confronted. Like, say what you will about Tilo Young, he is like a confrontational interviewer, with like pretty much everyone he has on, and he believes it in a kind of like really nice, like probably one of the better qualities of German libs, which is like democracy does have to be like constantly poked and prodded and make sure that everyone is like, trial by fire. Let's see what your actual stuff, if it has rigor and it stands up. She was not ready for that because every previous media interaction with Volt has been so like fawning and like, wow, you're young, with the exception of our podcast episodes, but we didn't have a Volt member on it. So like,
and we never will. I don't want to
ever.
I don't want to talk like I don't want to talk to them ever.
I want to talk to an ex-Volt person, actually. That'd be so fucking funny.
Put an ad out of like, have you been wronged by this weird tech Nazi party?
Have they hurt you?
Have they hurt you? Did you go into Volt thinking it was a pan-European party only to realize that it's chock full of Nazis?
That's the Discord for certain. I think at the very best you could say like
and Twitter, like the
oh god, that one Dutch woman who's like a Volt who keeps making those AI images of buff guys being like, this is the United States of Europe. Everyone's white and blonde. Don't worry about it. I think it was disastrous. It was so quiet. It was so weird. The Volt Discord people were completely disillusioned. And like everything they've been doing for the last while has been embarrassing. Going back to the TikTok, the one TikTok I saw that made me laugh was they did like everyone in the headquarters celebrating, throwing their papers in the air like it was V-Day, and like we're all just like, yeah. And it was like POV, Volt receives 7% of the vote.
Yeah, never.
Never. But also, dude, come on, set your goals higher.
Yeah, I mean 0.7, because that's the thing of like, I've talked with like the people from Mara about exactly that, of like, what are your like guys' realistic goals, and they're like 0.5%, and I'm like, good, like that's at least like, for a very small party that then. I think in the sense too that the problem that I have with Volt so much is how, unlike, like, don't get me wrong, like I think right now, especially in the German scenario, having a bunch of smaller left-wing parties isn't maybe the best thing, but I understand the like genuine point where they come from. I wouldn't say that they like garner enough things to be like, oh, they take like Klasse gegen Klasse is only running in like one district of Berlin. And it's like, it's like they're not taking, like, I mean, I wouldn't really argue, as much as I don't like them, that they're like not really taking votes away from like Die Linke or something like that.
They're not. Yeah.
Where like Volt does.
Well, it's mostly because like all of those other parties are at least like kind of principled, whereas Volt is.
It's a scam. It like literally is. It is from top down. It is entirely a scam of like right wing politics dressed up for tech bros to make it seem like it's progressive. Where it's like, I may not like agree with the reason of voting for some of the smaller parties, but you're not going to tell me that then like Klasse gegen Klasse or like Mera or like these other parties aren't like actually left wing or socialist or progressive or something like that. You know, where like Volt isn't.
Volt has this thing where so there's two things. There's the kind of like words are magic kind of thing where like I saw that during when I lived in the UK during like the Brexit debate is like you couldn't like mention any like negative left-wing criticism of the EU because you will make Brexit happen. So everyone just kind of has to fall in line and say a bunch of things to be positive. So like it I guess the modern like language for it would be like toxic positivity. And that's like the entirety of like how Volt kind of operates and how their candidates present themselves. The other side of it is they really they have taken what they have learned from like Kinsey and Co. and like the private sphere in which they all worked for like piddly little startups and stuff that like stopped existing after a year of business is they kind of believe in like SEO trickery as like a political messaging strategy. That's why everyone gets Volt so fucking high on their like Valomat, is because they're just saying what they know people want to kind of like hear, but then like don't really act on any of it and like is fundamentally untrustworthy.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing I found that was so interesting with the Tilo Young interview is that then, like as you mentioned, it is the only time they've ever been like questioned or prodded about their positions, and tying back to the previous segment that we had of defense and whatnot, where the like just starting off the bat of like the 10-minute clip that Tilo Young posted on his Instagram is about NATO and how Volt is like, yeah, fuck that 2% threshold. We're minimum of 3. And Tilo Young then mentions that it's like, so you want to do 180 billion euros into the German defense, into German defense. And she's like, yep. Absolutely. And you're just hearing that number and you're hearing the percent. Cause I think that's the thing too, of that, the percentage of whether it be the 2 or the Greens want to do 5%, which is fucking insane.
Yeah,
but then
do Poland.
Yeah. Basically. So when you that number, the to GDP ratio doesn't, sound that big until you then actually throw that number in, I'm sorry. I think that Germany, I may be an, old school loser on this, but I think Germany just probably shouldn't have a military, let alone investing nearly 200 billion euros, into something that will not work and will just become a corruption loophole. That is how the German military functions.
I also just do not take the threat of it seriously in the sense of let's say, well, you have a problem of no one was doing the 2% to begin with.
Yeah,
but at all the NATO members or European Union's current spending on defense. And the big bogeyman you're trying to talk about here is Russia, probably. That's who we're talking about. I do not believe that Russia would actually stand a chance against United Europe or NATO in a conventional war. Obviously, when you're talking about NATO, you get into nuclear stuff, and that's all just very terrifying. But I don't really think the difference is going from 2% to 5%. I just refuse to believe that's going to make a huge difference, because the problem you have with NATO or the European army is about interoperability, which doesn't really require more money. It just requires organization. You also the whole argument is also completely devoid from things Adam Tooze has brought up of just the average German bullet costs 10 times as much as the average French bullet.
Yeah. And I think the sense as well,
that doesn't fix this.
Yeah, I think the thing as well too is that then like the Russian military, not to say that they've been successful in Ukraine or whatever, but they've been able to like maintain their their active military pursuits in Ukraine by doing it the cheapest possible fucking way. Like I think people aren't so aware of the fact of that. Then Russia, remember when like they were conscripting out people to from prisons to Wagner and whatnot?
Yeah.
That was done to save money,
or like attacking like the poorest, predominantly like
or exactly regions. Or conscripting from areas that that are like Dagestan or like in Siberia and stuff like that, like ethnically non-white Russian areas. Russia has like the ability for Russia to then continue this meat grinder of a conflict was because they were going as like cheap in every which way possible. So cheap to the fact that they didn't even like give people like night vision goggles, and they were just like have troops hold hands while like going across the battlefield, just getting like picked off left and right by like Ukrainian snipers.
Yeah, and then I think also people kind of have quickly forgotten that Russia has also had to like quietly restate their military goals. Like initially they were like, oh yeah, we'll do this in like a month and we'll do like regime change. We'll take Kiev so quickly.
Yeah.
And we're talking about like Europe's second poorest country and they couldn't fucking do it. So it's just like, yeah, you're like NATO needs to spend more and that will stop Russia rather than like, I don't know. I think like not to give them too much credit, but like I've seen the like 1,000-yard stare of a Baltic military man. Like I'm just like, no way, that guy's out for fucking blood.
Or even on like another example too of how just like throwing money at things don't work. I know that we don't talk a lot about like the military aspect of the genocide in Gaza, but Israel cannot keep territory for shit.
Saudi Arabia versus Yemen. Again, another
same. Like I think that then it's like if we've not learned anything in the like war on terror age of military conflict, is that then you throwing more money at things does not make you better because the people that you're probably fighting against are just gonna wait it out.
Yeah, and it's also like I think the other part of it is also like invasion.
Yeah,
is like a thing where like the morale of people who are in their like home is always going to be much stronger than like the porn addicted North Koreans who you send halfway across the world.
Yeah, they can't. I mean, like they're cooked at this point.
Yeah. But again, I'm still putting out my prediction for like some sort of weird iPad baby groiper that like Elon Musk has just like sleeper agent into the government is going to convince the American military to invade Greenland while wearing those Rhodesian shorts.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Everyone's going to freeze to death. It's going to be great.
But yeah, so
they deserve more money. They're our best and brightest.
Yeah, but yeah, it really is. It is so insane to me how Volt just kind of like they peddle these like right wing positions and never get really criticized for it. And I'm really glad because I saw people that I like, wasn't expecting sharing this interview of Maral with Tilo Young, just being like, who the fuck is this? Like, what is going on? This party.
Yeah. I mean, they provoked, so the only like, there are like two other people other than our podcast who've been critical of Volt, and it's like Tilo Young with this interview, and that like one kind of like old school conservative crank investigative journalist from the Netherlands who like when they went into parliament over there was like, who the fuck are these guys? Which is weird because like our when he started his whole Volt beat, our podcast got linked to him because we'd beaten him by like 2 years or something.
That's right, baby. Well, because when that came about when we were talking about like European federalism and the different ideas of it, and that's when you were like, there's this secret special other third crazy thing.
Yeah.
Of what if we put Europe on the blockchain?
Europe on the blockchain. The Okay, so moving away from that, we should probably talk about the other Tilo Young interview that happened.
Yeah, the one that
It's
then
probably
is
more important.
far more important. I mean, yeah, it was funny seeing Morale get shat on by everyone, and I hope that Volt does very poorly.
They're getting close to, I should say, in polling, they are getting close to getting past the threshold in like the upcoming
funding.
Hamburg state elections.
Go get the fuck out of here. Go away.
Hamburg feels like a Volt city.
100%.
Right?
Yeah, Hamburg's definitely a Volt city. But yeah, so Tilo also went out and interviewed our boy Olaf Scholz, and bless you, the kitty cat sneezed. That was adorable.
Oh.
Yeah, Olaf Scholz, and I guess the main point that we kind of got was Olaf Scholz 1-to-1, Tilo Young prodding him, and Olaf Scholz denying that there is any genocide happening in Gaza, which was, I mean, like,
good.
Yeah, it was expected, but it's just kind of wild into the sense now that then now, what 16 months into this now, that there is complete every level of the German government pretty much just having full deniability. I mean, because it really is the sense of, oh no, if I don't believe the lies of my Jewish friend, that makes me an anti-Semite, instead of listening to then like all the fucking evidence that shows that Israel is committing a genocide.
Yeah. We can go on this, like we can go on our position of this, which is like to the kind of people that Olaf Scholz surrounds himself with is probably very extreme, but like Tilo Young, to be fair, for anyone who didn't see it or anyone who doesn't speak German, was kind of framing it in like very reasonable terms, in the sense that like, hey, this ICJ court case is happening. What are we going to do if it's ruled in favor that it was Völkermord, genocide, whatever? And he's just like, and Schultz just didn't want to entertain the question. Whereas like, I don't think Tilo Young ever brought this up, but like this has actually been the position of a handful of European countries. Like the Netherlands has kind of like pulled out of a bunch of shit with Israel because they're like the prudent thing to be doing here. And like the argument, I've heard Germans make this argument before, even like the prudent thing to be doing here is we should probably back away until the court case ruling comes along. Like, you know, at the same time, these Germans who I've spoken to fully believe that it will come back like not in favor of genocide. Israel's doing great things, blah, blah, blah. But they're just like, you know, better safe than sorry kind of thing. And it is amazing that even when confronted with that fairly like conservative take on the whole thing, Schultz was still like, no, it's impossible.
I think in the sense too of like, and this is me speculating, I think that then that as well, like the average German probably is aware of the sense that then, oh, it's bad on the ground. And it isn't even so much the sense that it's like, oh, well, you know, like it's justifiable or whatever, this and that and that. I think that Germans just don't understand what genocide is. And I'm being completely serious, because I think that the average German or the average European, even for that matter, or American or whatever, thinks that then genocide is this thing that then you have to have a Wannsee conference for, and you have to have the remember the reporter, the German reporter, being like, oh, where's the paperwork saying they're doing genocide? And Germans think that then in order to do genocide, you have to do genocide can only be done by the Nazi method of doing it in the most hyper calculated bureaucratic way possible, that you have like lists of people, the dates that you're going to do it, that deportations have to happen. And it's like the majority of genocides are actually like incredibly spontaneous, you know, like whether it be the sense of, look at then like the Balkans, Rwanda, exactly. Like there is preparation to sense, and you can then make the argument that no, they're not spontaneous. This hatred has been going on and has been implemented for years and years and years and years and years. Same
spontaneous
thing
from the perspective of what the Nazis organized.
Yeah, exactly. But then in the sense of like, you know, like with Palestine, is that yes, like the you can make the argument that the genocide's been going on for 80 years, like after the Nakba, this and that, you know, forced, you know, movements of, forced relocation is genocide, cultural genocide, this and that. But in the sense of like, you know, like mass killings, crimes against humanity, stuff like that happened much more, you know, like I don't know what the percentage is of how much more it had happened post October 7th than previous other bombardments that Israel had been doing, but the intensity of it and the scope of destruction that Israel had openly been doing, claiming that then in the sense of like, oh, well, this is like, if you claim it to be a military goal, the average European still thinks in a sense of total war, so they're probably fine with that. Of like, oh well, you have to, if you have to crack a few eggs to make an omelet. Or look at World War II. Like the entirety of cities were completely leveled. Gaza looks like that. This and that and that. They justify it themselves that then, oh no, this is simply just a bad military campaign, because the reality of that then of what genocide looks like to them can't actually be that. Like it's like the Armenian genocide, for example, functioned very much. It followed a military campaign that Turkey had been doing post World War I, or I guess in like the middle of World War I technically, where they are like, they went into like the regions of Anatolia that were, Armenian and Kurdish and Greek, and they played it off the back of that. It was like a military campaign. Oh, these people were, attacking us, this and that and that. And the level of destruction and murder that then followed that, which is how the Turkish government, justifies the Armenian genocide. No. It was a military campaign. We didn't do this like, it wasn't genocide. They were fighting against us, And it's the same logic that then Israel does, even like when Netanyahu was on the phone to Biden being like, oh yeah, like, you guys dropped the atomic bomb. Like, we don't consider that a genocide, like, even though you probably maybe could,
Yeah. It's the I've definitely encountered the kind of like the very stupid argument of just like, well, there are Palestinians still left kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like that like genocide only happens when it's successful.
Yeah. You're never gonna have like a situation like Thessaloniki where like literally the entire Jewish population was completely exterminated.
Yeah.
Like that actually is extremely
not for lack of
rare.
trying, though.
Oh no, of course not. Yeah, like
it's just kind of grim to kind of confront it. I think also the issue that kind of just like makes me a bit doom spiral is a little bit is like how maybe from afar this doesn't how from afar and how from Olaf Scholz's position. I don't like okay. From afar and from Olaf Scholz's position, and I would say everyone who's taking part in those kind of like anti-AFD protests that occurred, they don't realize how intimate these two things are connected. Like that the justification and the like complete like running interference for Israel's actions in the Middle East is just contributing to like the rampant Islamophobia and new racism, quote unquote new racism of modern Germany. Like how those two things are just so intimately connected. Like Schultz will go on and be like, oh, genocide's not happening, and then expect himself to be the face of like an anti-AFD resistance.
It really is a mind-boggling thing where then like you see like, for example, a group like Omas gegen Rechts, who are like vehemently Islamophobic. And they come out to then, the anti-fascist, whatever. I'm not going to call them anti-fascist. The anti-AFD bullshit protests. Oh, I'm patting myself on the back. I'm doing a good thing. I'm still going to vote for a party that's really racist. They can't. These things aren't like mutually like exclusive to one another. Like Germany by their foreign policy and their support of Israel is like, is furthering the ultra right wing neo-fascist movement in Europe.
That being said, we should talk about some slight changes in kind of like election outlook that has occurred.
Yeah. Of course.
Because we did our episodes kind of on a roundup of the German elections before Merz's like stunt, basically.
Yeah.
And that did kind of change the game a little bit. Where I think to a handful, a reasonable percentage of the population did kind of go along with Kieran's like, oh no, he's wearing an Optimus hat perspective of things, which is, I guess like what we could just say is like it's kind of a bad move for the CDU to do this, because the people who are sticking with them probably don't want to vote for the AFD. They want to vote for like the CDU, whatever that means. We can say that's not sufficiently like, anti-fascist enough or whatever, but like they don't want to vote AFD. People do not like the default party of Germany, breaking the firewall. And we've seen some like mixed results in this, like the protests and stuff, but like it didn't help Mertz's numbers at all. They're still like, CDU is still hovering. They like, I think Mertz, we talked about, wanted to do this to fix the fact that the polling was like for the CDU was basically staying flat, if not going slightly down. This didn't fucking help. This is not what people wanted. What we have seen, most recent like Sonntagswahl, like weekly poll that's conducted, has what I would consider the absolute like, I don't know, sickos.jpg auf Deutsch result for me, where I'm just like at the window with like Kranken written on my shirt, and I'm just going like, haha, jawohl, jawohl, the entire time, which is FDP and BSW not making the threshold with like a 7% Die Linke.
Yeah, it's pretty wild to me that the FDP is the biggest waste of fucking time of any party. That then it's like you're the CDU, or like you have your two genders of libertarianism. Do I want to be really racist, or do I want to be kind of racist? Or they're both really racist. Do I want to be like, all right, no, do I want to skip the steps and go directly to Nazism, which this libertarianism is going to end up in, or do I want to pretend that I'm still like a Democrat about this?
I would, to put it maybe more generously, as I want to do.
No, I don't want to be generous.
I know you don't. The two wings of the FDP are like racism and money, and they've just gone like, racism's gone AFD, money's gone CDU. I think that's
so the fact that I want to see the destruction of the FDP more than anything. God willing, let's make this happen. And the
BS has to cry.
The BSV because that was the thing, is that then everyone was kind of speculating like, oh, okay, they're polling at like 6-7%. They may make it in. Their breakaway from Die Linke wasn't maybe like the worst idea. And then everyone then kind of realized that then they're like, oh, wait, no, this party is the racist party. And that was the thing that then it wasn't the bizarre opinions on like Russia. It wasn't this, it wasn't that. It was the fact that then that this party has doubled down of like, oh yeah, we are the like national economic, quasi, whatever, like like national left economic party,
it's like, I think of the entire German political landscape, what I would say is that what I think we might be seeing the result of is that there is kind of a gas leak. Like if all the politicians are in a big room, there is a gas leak, and that gas leak's name is Bild. Like Bild has managed to successfully convince you that actually gaining more votes is to like turn up the racism dial out of the drill tweet. But it actually turns out that when people are confronted with that, they're like, nah, this isn't really what I'm about, actually.
Yeah. And the thing of it that then too is like, speaking in like off the back of the Mats thing, of it is amazing to me how because this is the thing I find so crazy. Everyone talks about, oh, post-truth. Like libs love that, but they don't seem to even like libs didn't seem to understand this even with the American election, of that then the entire migration debate isn't real. Like no one, like Kamala went, oh, I'm going to double down on being more racist and this and that and that. All the parties in Germany, the CDU, the SPD, the Greens even too, are doubling down. Oh, migration. Migration numbers are going down in Europe. This is not a thing that's happening. Also, what? Like, you hear
word has gotten
stories.
out, shit sucks here.
Yeah, like you have 1,000 migrants who are trying to cross. Do you know how few 1,000 people are? Like, do you not know?
The other aspect of like the migration debate isn't real.
No, yeah.
Was the side of it like you didn't understand what the genuinely racist vote wanted, which was they had like a person of color neighbor or someone who lived in their city, and they want to see that individual suffer.
Yeah.
But it is not about like that racist does not know if that person has been in Germany since 2014, 2017, or the 1950s, and they don't care. They want them as an individual to suffer because there's a lot of explanations for this. One, they still have like, people would argue like, oh, like the Turkish German population still has like a community.
Yeah, it's gonna happen.
Like, which is like, no, we did neoliberalism to stop this.
Yeah,
stop having friends. Boo!
And this is the thing that then grinds my gears more than anything. And this isn't just about Germany. This is all of Europe. Is that no one confronts the fact that it's like, you guys are all fucking lying. No one goes on to like fucking Anne Vil or like any of these stupid TV shows and then prods back at like, no, what about migration? Yeah, it is a made up issue. Not one single person goes and is like, no, that not only is like this completely blown out of proportion, it doesn't exist, you know?
And it's also why you could never beat the far right at this, like at their own game, because the far right and people who vote for them understand that it's about making this like this one individual who is as German as fucking sauerkraut at this point suffer. Because like it's like they're not actually talking about immigration. They say immigration to reassure people, but what they really want people to know is the like, hey, we got the guy who Sig Heiled at the fucking inauguration to come give a giant like a 1984 Big Brother ass fucking giant screen speech to us. And hey, and at the after party we're playing Gigi D'Agostino, a perfectly innocent Italian song.
And
don't worry.
Yeah, don't worry. Yeah, we didn't make it racist. Yeah,
yeah. It's just like you don't understand that that's what they're really saying, and they're not actually talking about immigration.
No, yeah. I mean, that's the reason why the AfD just uses the number for all people who've migrated to Germany, including Europeans. They're like, oh, we've had 10 million migrants since this year, and it's
the
Dutch.
Yeah,
the Dutch must suffer. Yeah, like it's like it's the thing too that then these people, and I don't want to say that they're stupid or anything like that, but they're just so fucking gullible that like you can look up, like Europe has, Eurostat keeps track of all this shit, and Europe actually, for all of its problems, the one thing it is very good at is keeping its own data, and that number is not what you think it is in any regard. Even in the sense of illegalized migration into Europe is not the number that like the number that then should be, like making you sick is the amount of people that die trying to come here and that Europe makes happen, that.
Yeah. And we've done this kind of surveys since like fucking mid 2000s. Like the famous one is that study they did in the like UK, France, Netherlands, and Germany, 4 countries where they just did like a telephone survey with people, asked them what they think the percentage of the population is like immigrants, and then in pretty much fucking, I think it was something stupid like 90% of them all overestimated.
Yeah,
and like it's nuts. It's you just, and we see like when you have it in the States, you get like a glimpse of what's going to happen, which is none of this far right conception matches reality. And then they get into government, and all they do for the entirety of the government is like scratch at the walls, tearing everything apart, trying to find the secret woke that was always in the government, driving themselves mad.
Yeah. And I guess speak of the devil.
Yeah.
And I think that really perfectly leads into how we want to end this episode. Is I think we have to talk about, speaking of the U.S., J.D. Vance.
Our number one favorite.
Our number one
eyeliner spokesperson.
Yeah.
He wears eyeliner, right? I'm not making that up.
You might be right. I think it's just that his face has like that weird sunken in thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
JD Vance.
Yeah, God, yeah. And this is a thing that then I think is so funny when people are like, oh, we were expecting a good speech from him at the Munich Security Conference. It's like, this is like literally the playground of evil people. Like,
well, yeah, that and also like in the classic, like continental Europe is 10 years behind. They're still just like, oh yeah, JD Vance, the author of Hillbilly Elegy, noted liberal darling.
Noted liberal darling, yeah. Yeah, speaking of making up a rhetoric or whatever, he made his whole speech pretty much about migration, which again, not happening. Then which the speech is fucking stupid. Like, it's not so much in the sense that then that like JD Vance is like, Adam Tooze actually wrote like a thing about this that he released today that was a pretty decent overview of that, then just kind of like, MAGA lies to you. MAGA's full of bullshit. Like, everything's a contradiction. Like, you're gullible if you believe it, whatever. But it's not the fact that then that the like method of how it's presented is like dumb, you know. Yeah. Like, JD Vance is very good at lying at you, you know, as he did with like the what's it called, the Haitian dog eaters thing, yeah, which then he admits of like, yeah, that never happened. And you have, you know, this, you know, yeah, our eyeliner king coming and making the whole security conference speech about how the U.S. is, I guess, MAGTOW, MAGA going their own way, apparently. And how Europe needs to really, you know, double down and control its non-existent migration problem. I feel that I am going insane. The more that I hear about this shit, the more I want to just like I want to physically assault someone who is saying it, because it is not happening and it's not true. And then after all this, he then refuses to meet Olaf Scholz, simply saying he won't be chancellor for much longer. It doesn't matter, and then goes and only meets Alice Weidel. So yes, you, as you so perfectly put, Big Brother, weird guy on the Jumbotron, also endorsing the Nazism thing. And now we have our emo queen also going and giving the, you know, the internationalist, nationalist, you know, pat on the back to the party that apparently aren't Nazis because Hitler was left wing or some fucking bullshit.
Yeah. Alice Weidel's fucking very old 4chan argument repurposed for a German audience. Yeah, my God, it's the JD Vance stuff is super, like that speech in particular, the Munich speech was insidious. First of all, frontline or front page news. I feel like I'm seeing more newspapers now these days, just knocking around, because I went shopping this morning and I forgot that it's like still a kind of a thing in Ireland where like a bunch of guys just go out to buy like sausages, rashers, and the Sunday paper. And I'm just like, fascinating. I miss this so much. But like, this speech was on the front cover of like over here, like the Guardian and the Financial Times.
Yeah.
As a big thing of just like, yeah, it's an insidious speech because it brings up some stuff that is genuinely like concerning. I'm very surprised personally, but I guess this is probably a fascination of like overly online right people in the United States who figure themselves intellectuals. He brings up Calin Georgescu and the fact that he's like not allowed to run in the Romanian election, and the like election was cancelled, blah blah blah. And that is like that is genuinely a sore spot for Europe, because like Romania is scrambling at the moment to deal with that, and like they haven't really got a successful answer to it. And that's why like his whole speech is so fucking insidious, because he like brings up that, which is a genuine problem, and then presents that as being like the same as the German situation, which is like the AfD hasn't been forbought. They're not banned.
They should be. Like, yeah. Well, then he does the whole freedom of speech thing, and I think that then we've talked about this plenty of times on the show too. Is that the American idea of freedom of speech for good reason does not exist in Europe. It is not a thing, and don't fucking make it a
it's
thing.
also not a problem because we as a podcast exist, so you know.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, and I hate when I hear Americans being like, oh, well, you know, Europe doesn't have freedom of speech, and I cannot express the fact that then one, I do not care, because the people that then who complain about freedom of speech normally are complaining about it for like really bad reasons of like, oh,
I just want to do an Elon Musk style salute.
Yeah. Oh, I can't do. Oh, so you say if I go to Germany, I can't deny the Holocaust and I can't do a Nazi salute? No, you can't, and that's good. You know, and I don't want to like. And if you do the
you
like,
can't do that here anyway, buddy.
And it's like
it's bad form.
Yeah, and it's like if you do them. Oh, well, what about if they ban this? What about if they ban that? Like, it's like, well, first off, like you're using the slippery slope bullshit argument. You are stupid. You know, I think that it's perfectly fine for there to be limitations of things that you can and can't do, speech related or not. You know, and the thing is too is that the freedom of speech shit is always used typically against the left historically through in Europe, and it doesn't even exist in the United States.
And also the U.S.
Yeah, like go fuck yourself. You know.
Yeah.
Freedom of speech is under attack because I can't make up stories about migrants or whatever, or I can't I can't be a Nazi, and it's like, no, yeah, you shouldn't. Like, it shouldn't be the fact that you can't. Have you ever thought about the fucking fact that you shouldn't be a Nazi? You know.
Like, pretty sick, actually. If you stop being a Nazi, we could maybe hang out again. Whatever.
Like
come over here.
Oh, I can't say the N-word at work. It's like you can't say the N-word at work to begin with. Like,
can't really say that in America either, where they have freedom of speech. It's just like
freedom of speech is such a dumb, baby-brained topic. It's not a real thing. The only people it's real to are like dipshit libertarians who don't realize that their entire worldview is the worldview of a 13-year-old teenager who's never fucked.
Yeah. So
I'm so mad today, as you can tell. I hated this week. I mean, I had a lovely weekend, but the news was awful.
The news was pretty bad, and JD Vance's speech was particularly infuriating.
Oh, it was horrible. Yeah,
probably because the reason it was infuriating because it had the exact same tone and content of like the worst reply you ever got on Twitter.
Yeah, 100%. But that guy happens to be number 2 I guess maybe number 3 in the most powerful country on earth.
Like, realistically, we have already talked about in this podcast. I strongly recommend people listening go listen to I think it's a recent episode of Trash Future. I need to get this because it's pretty good. They had an interview with someone who's been paying attention to like all the shit that like Doge has been doing.
Oh, cool.
About how like they're just like breaking the source code of how America makes payments, basically, and that includes to like paying off their national debt, paying off foreign loans, paying people on the black budget, like foreign spies and diplomats and stuff. Like, at one point, they're just going to break the direct debit service, basically, of the United States. As Riley kind of described it, like 1,000,000 2008s. Kind of.
I mean,
so yeah,
I'm fine with the U.S. doing it to themselves. I don't really care.
Oh, absolutely. Like, okay, yeah. So for anyone, that was the 11th of February episode, Worst Case Scenario, featuring Nathan Tankus, who's a very good journalist. You can read his stuff as well. But like, that is the more like going concern. Really, and like the idea of American talking this like really big game, and like JD Vance in particular, when we know that they just run away like little cowards if you ban Twitter for 2 weeks like they did with Brazil. Like, it's such nonsense. I can't believe the guy wearing his eyeliner who doesn't even have the fucking balls to admit he's doing it. Like, because this is the thing. People were like, oh, like, you know, attacking, you know, JD Vance for wearing highlighter is kind of like, you know, homophobic. It's like, no, it's not, because if you talk to someone like in Berlin who's wearing eyeliner, you ask them about it, they're happy to tell you the brand that they have. They would have recommendations.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell you every chance they get, and then at the same time it's just like he's denying that he's even doing this, and it's just like, come on, man, this is just own it being a goddamn coward.
It's really the Chinese century couldn't come any quicker, please.
I mean, absolutely. Favorite thing I haven't mentioned on this podcast, but there was a Financial Times opinion piece, which is usually kind of dodgy, but still they did some research regarding, like, they did their, like, journalistic due diligence about, like, about the tariffs and stuff, and how, like, Europe is considering retaliatory tariffs and things like that. one of the things that this like journalist did is they asked their kind of like EU bureaucrat spokesperson, being like, in terms of retaliatory tariffs, have we considered just trading more with China? And like the response from the anonymous European bureaucrat was like, we've been talking about that for months. And it's just like, oh, okay, we're fully just going to go. I think Europe is fully just going to do the whole like, we'll just become buddies with China if you don't fucking stop this shit.
Yeah, I mean, I can only hope in the sense that then that the U.S. crumbles fast enough that then that the right here doesn't pick up enough energy to then also just be like, well, we have to work with the United States double as much now, and just like collectively automatically make us poorer. Because they're like, no, we for the the sanctity of Western civilization, we have to work with this country that's in free fall.
Oh, absolutely! Like I can't remember who said it, but someone was like, the Soviet Union had more functioning institutions at this point.
Oh
like,
yeah.
Like, but like in 1985, it had more functioning institutions than the U.S. does, and I'm like, oh no.
Hell yeah.
I think I said it on the last podcast. I'm looking forward to who's going to become, the United States Belarus, because I'm here in Ireland and I'm like, it could be us.
Yeah. Fair.
Yeah.
Just on a one last note before we leave. Speaking of the right getting scary, though, just a story that I saw before we started recording was the police in Saxony have lost a metric ton of ammunition, and they don't know where it went. So we know where it went. It is being stolen by police officers who are Nazis.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So
nothing bad happens.
If that makes you feel any better, of that, then that the direction that then Europe is not only politically heading in a right wing direction, Nazis are also emboldening themselves and really wanting that whatever, that race war, civil war, whatever the hell you want to call
Turner Diaries.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Nick, what are you talking? This is just typical left wing scaremongering. A right wing force in Saxon? No. In my Saxon?
Yeah.
Never.
Or maybe it's a Gladio thing. Maybe it's maybe the U.S.
Maybe it's just a Gladio.
Maybe it's just a Gladio thing. Who knows?
We don't have to worry.
We don't have to worry about it. Those are never a problem.
It's fine. Anyway, with that, thank you for listening to this. Probably a bit of a downer of an episode, a long one, but hey, we gotta do it.
It's a mosaic of a downer, dare I say.
Yeah. Sometimes weekends happen in days.
For real.
And we will catch you on the bonus feed. Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.